Hi, this is Rob. I'm going to show you how to do the exercises that go along with the video lesson, Intro to the Metric System. Are you ready? Let's get started. For our first problem, we're supposed to answer these questions, and we have, which metric unit is 10 times bigger than a meter? And when we're dealing with the metric system, it's really important to memorize the main 6 prefixes. And luckily, those prefixes work whether we're dealing with meters, grams, or liters, or any metric unit that we're going to deal with. In this video, we just deal with meters and grams. But the prefix that's 10 times bigger than the base unit is deca. And so the metric unit that's 10 times bigger than a meter is a decameter. And now the next question is, which metric unit is 100 times smaller than a meter? And once again, we just have to memorize those prefixes. And the prefix that's 100 times smaller than the base unit is centi. Centi, or it's C-E-N-T-I. And then when you have that prefix for a meter, centimeter, you pronounce it centimeter. And so the metric unit that's 10 times bigger than a meter is a decameter, and the metric unit that's 100 times smaller than a meter is a centimeter. For problem 2, we're supposed to answer these questions. And we have, which metric unit is 1,000 times bigger than a gram? And the metric unit, the prefix that's 1,000 times bigger than the base unit is kilo, K-I-L-O. And so the metric unit that's 1,000 times bigger than a gram is a kilogram. And then the metric unit that's 1,000 times smaller than a gram is a milligram. The prefix that's 1,000 times smaller is milli, M-I-L-L-I, and then we want 1,000 times smaller than a gram, so it's a milligram. So the metric unit that's 1,000 times bigger than a gram is a kilogram. The metric unit that's 1,000 times smaller than a gram is a milligram. For problem 3, we're supposed to list the abbreviations for each metric unit. So we have this list of units here, and we're supposed to put the abbreviations over here. So the first unit is a kilogram. And the prefix abbreviation for kilo is K, and then for gram is G. So kg is the abbreviation for kilogram. Meter, we're dealing with the base unit here. We don't have a prefix, just the base unit meter, and the abbreviation for a meter is M. For centimeter, the abbreviation for the prefix centi is C. So cm is the abbreviation for centimeter. For milligram, the abbreviation for milli is M, and gram is G. So mg is the abbreviation for milligram. For millimeter, the abbreviation for milli is still M, and then meter is also M. So mm is millimeter. For problem 4, we're asked how many meters are in each of the following units. So we have kilometer, or a kilometer. And remember, kilo is 1,000 times bigger than the base unit. So a kilometer is 1,000 meters. A hectometer, and we have to just memorize that hecto is 100 times bigger than the base unit. So a hectometer is 100 meters. And then a centimeter, centi is 100 times smaller than the base unit. So it's 1/100th of the base unit. So it's 1/100th of a meter. And millimeter, milli, is 1,000 times smaller than the base unit, or 1/1000th of the base unit. So a millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter. For problem 5, we're told to convert this metric unit, and we're given 2,500 meters. And then we're supposed to express that length in decameters, hectometers, and kilometers. So 2,500 meters is how many decameters? Well, if you remember from the video, a decameter is 10 times bigger than a meter. So that means there's going to be 10 times fewer decameters than there are meters. Remember how we had in the video, we had the number place lined up with the different units? So like if we have 2,500 meters, so meters is in the ones place column of 2,500. The next one over was decameters, and that's abbreviated DA because there's also decimeters, which are 10 times smaller, and so they had to, give this a 2-letter abbreviation. And then the next one up is the hectometer, H for hecto. And then the next one is the kilometer, K for kilo. And so if we have 2,500 meters and we want to know how many decameters there are, then we need to move it so the decimal point is right here and that the decameter column is in the ones place. So if we move the decimal point over here, we see that we have 250 decameters. So 250 decameters. And if we want to know how many hectometers we have, remember a hectometer is 100 times bigger than a meter. So there's going to be 100 times fewer hectometers than there are meters. And we do that with our number place system, moving it 2 times over from where it was with the meters. And so now we have 25 hectometers. And for kilometers, they're 1,000 times bigger than a meter. So there's going to be 1,000 times fewer kilometers than there are meters. And with our number place system trick, we just move the decimal point to where it's in the kilometer column, but immediately to the right of the kilometer column. So that's 3 times over from where it was for the meters. And that gives us 2.5. 2.5 kilometers is the same as 2,500 meters. For problem 6, we're supposed to convert this metric unit, and we're given 36.2 kilograms. And we're supposed to express this mass in hectograms, decograms, and grams. And remember, hectograms are 100 times bigger than a gram, but we're not dealing directly with grams, we're dealing with kilograms. And kilograms are 1,000 times bigger than a gram, or 1,000 times more massive than a gram. And so a hectogram is 100 times more massive than a gram, a decagram is 10 times more massive than a gram, and a gram is a gram. So let's do the same trick we did using the number place trick. So we have 36.2 kilograms. So that means the K will go right over this because the 6 is in our ones place column when it's 36.2. And so that means the next one over from a kilogram is a hectogram because the kilogram is 1,000 times bigger than a gram and a hectogram is 100 times bigger than a gram. And so, oh boy, I might end up running out of room here. Hopefully not. So if we want to see how many hectograms there are, we move the decimal point so it's immediately to the right of the hectogram column. So we make the hectograms the ones place of the number. So we have 362 hectograms. 362 hectograms. And that makes sense because hectograms are smaller than kilograms, and so there's going to be more of them. And so now the next column over is going to be decograms, DA. And so we need to move the decimal point this way. And remember, when you're multiplying by 10 or moving the decimal point to the right, you just add a 0 if there's not already a digit in that column. So we have 3,620 decograms. 3,620 decograms. And now we need to do the same thing. I kind of ran out of room here, but you can kind of see like grams right there. We're multiplying it by 10 again because a gram is 10 times smaller than a decagram, so there's going to need to be 10 times as many. And it's 1,000 times smaller than a kilogram, so there's going to be 1,000 times as many as kilograms. So there's going to be 36,200 grams to make up 36.2 kilograms. For problem 7, we need to convert this metric unit, and we're given 0.71 meters. And we need to express that length in decimeters, centimeters, and millimeters. All right? So we have 0.71 meters, and the meter, the M, needs to go over the ones place column. And now we need to know how many decimeters there are. And remember that decimeters are 10 times smaller than a meter. And so the decimeter, the D, is going to go in this column here. And so we need 10 times as many decimeters as meters because they're 10 times smaller. And we do that by moving the decimal point to the right so that it's immediately to the right of this column, the deci column that we want to see. And so we have 7.1 decimeters, 7.1 decimeters. And for centimeters, centimeters are 100 times smaller than meters. So there's going to be 100 times more centimeters than there are meters. And we can do that by moving the decimal point 2 away from the meter column into the centimeter column, immediately to the right of the centimeter column. So there's 71 centimeters. 71 centimeters. That's 100 times more centimeters than meters, which is what we want. And then for millimeters, millimeters is the next column over. I'll have to put 2m since we have meters in this column here. And so we don't have a digit there already, so we can put in a 0. And then we move the decimal point over right here. So it's immediately to the right of the millimeter column. And we have 710 millimeters. 710 millimeters, which is 1,000 times more millimeters than meters, which makes sense because they're 1,000 times smaller. And so you need more of them. For problem 8, we need to convert this metric unit, and we have 128 milligrams, and we need to express that mass in centigrams, decigrams, and grams. All right. So a centigram is 100 times smaller than a gram, but the unit we're starting from is a milligram, which is 1,000 times smaller than a gram. Let's see. We have 128 m for milli, and we want to know centigrams. And so since a centigram is bigger than a milligram, remember a milligram is 1,000 times smaller than a gram, a centigram's 100 times smaller than a gram. So a centigram is bigger than a milligram, 10 times bigger. So to find out how many centigrams we have, we need to divide by 10 or move the decimal point 1 unit to the left. We need to move it to the column immediately. We need to move it immediately to the right of the centigram column. So we have 12.8 centigrams. 12.8 centigrams. And now for decigrams, decigrams are 10 times smaller than a gram. So they're 10 times bigger than a centigram and 100 times bigger than a milligram. And so that would go in this column right here. The decigrams would go in this column here. And we would move the decimal point until it's immediately to the right of the decigram column. That's moving it 2 units, 2 columns from where it was when we were expressing milligrams, which is equivalent to multiplying by 100. So the decigrams are 1.28 decigrams. And then grams are the base unit, and so they're 1,000 times bigger than a milligram. Remember, because milli is 1,000 times smaller than the base unit, so the base unit is 1,000 times bigger than the milli. So the gram column goes here, so we need to move the decimal point 1 more over. So it'll go right here, immediately to the right of the gram column. And we need to put a 0 here just for readability, because we have 0.128, but for readability, we want a 0 in that column. It'll be 0.128 grams is the same as 128 milligrams.